Good evening, this is Brother Bro here, and I'm here to review Furiosa for you. This is the new installment in the Mad Max franchise. And unlike Fury Road, this one is a saga. It takes place over many years, and it explores the life and backstory of the Furiosa character that we saw in Fury Road, which is a stark contrast to Fury Road, which is basically just one long chase scene. Furiosa is more of a conventional film in that sense, that the story has a much broader span and there's more of a clear arc that we're going through with her. It's definitively a revenge film and often plays out like a classic Western with her rivalry with Chris Hemsworth's character, whose name is Dementis. I'll just put out a disclaimer that action film is not my favorite genre, so if you're looking for a review from someone who's deeply invested in like action filmmaking and action cinema, I'm not like the person for you. I almost always need solid drama in a movie in order to like it, but there are definitely exceptions, and the Mad Max films are definitely some where even if you didn't give me an excellent story, I would still like them because the action is so well done. That being said, I probably like this more than I thought I would in many respects. Start out with the action filmmaking. There are some absolutely stunning set pieces in this film, and I don't see why fans of Fury Road would be disappointed here. All of those practical effects are back, where they're on the war rigs and there's like people flying in on parachutes and using the poles, with the machines producing unexpected contraptions to defeat people trying to board them. There's one scene in particular that was said to be like a 70-day shoot for that sequence alone, which is absolutely unfathomable. I mean, most films are shot within a month, or at least they try to be. The dedication to primarily filming the scene with practical elements, I'm sure, is like the reason this was such an expensive and lengthy scene to shoot. But it really is stunning, and it absolutely pays off. So I hope more people continue to explore how to practically shoot action in this way. And it seems to be something people value highly these days, and it really sets you apart. Whereas other films, you can just feel that it's not real, so you're just not quite as invested. But I won't say that every action scene feels distinctly practical. The movie is simply too big not to rely on CGI. We can't fault it for the fact that many of the action scenes are utilizing CGI and it is obvious. But because it's setting the bar so high with the practical elements, the scenes that do use CGI don't feel as compelling, and they just do not sell as well. So yes, the action alone is enough to see the film. And everybody I've talked to likes this. I think people universally are really happy with Furiosa overall. Although there does seem to be a consensus that maybe it's not as compelling as Fury Road. Now, if we're talking about story here, some people might have gotten more out of the world building than I did, but I thought the story was fine. As with many revenge films, I think inevitably the character feels a little bit empty and hollow, because it's sort of the point of revenge films is to explore like that emptiness, because they're trying to fill this void that cannot be actually filled. And this film is very conventionally a revenge flick in how it develops the characters, which is a little bit disappointing because revenge films don't come out of the box with well-developed characters. Like, it's just not part of the genre, but this film doesn't do anything to amend that. And it makes both of the leads, Furiosa and Dementis, feel a little bit flat. And this becomes very apparent in the ending, where they let them kind of hash it out and have this dialogue. The dialogue in that scene I thought was just so generic that it took me out of the film, and I thought this film could have done a service to itself by just speaking less. And maybe in that sense I wanted it to be more like Fury Road and just be a little more pure. Like, if you're gonna be an action movie, then just be that. Character-wise, it wasn't doing anything new, but the more it talks, the more it seems like it thought it was doing something interesting. I think Furiosa overall is cementing Mad Max as one of the best franchises going right now. And a huge reason for that is obviously George Miller's attention to detail. The production design, costumes, and makeup are absolutely stunning. Just like in Fury Road, you're not going to be disappointed. There's so much world building put into every rig, every costume, every prop, even if it's just in the background for a second, that has no exposition to accompany it. But I'm pretty certain that they came up with a reason, story-wise, to insert those elements in there. And maybe we'll never know some of them, but what it does is help fill out this world. And if you want to invest in it more deeply, you can by just looking around the corners of the screen to gather details about like what's the economy of this world like. Maybe where does this person come from? Enough can't be said about the attention to the crafts that George Miller and his team are putting forth here. In terms of score, I think people might be a little disappointed to know that there's less score than in Fury Road. A lot of the score is this like thunderous undercurrent that very easily inserts into like any scene where the tension is building. And it works really well, but the score is not one that you would go and listen to because it doesn't have a very distinct theme. The sound work here is excellent as well. Similar to the Dune films, there's so much attention to just the ambience, and part of that is the score just boiling underneath the sound and the action that's happening on the screen. And I actually really liked that they left the score out of a lot of the action scenes. Some people might disagree because they just love that junky XL score from the first film. But I think when you leave score out of action scenes, it forces you to be creative with how you utilize that sound, and this film is absolutely creative with its sound. The film just looks great. The cinematography is excellent. It's quite something to behold the way that the camera thrusts through the desert, often tracking these vehicles for lengthy periods of time. The film is spectacularly done overall, even if it does have its peaks and valleys in terms of which action scenes are more impressive and feel more immersive than others. Anya Taylor-Joy understood the assignment. She doesn't have too many lines. She's mostly like a mute character, but you know, she's got the eyes. She's got the eyes. That's mainly what I can say about that. Chris Hemsworth's character has a lot more lines and has a lot more ways to express his insanity, and it's a very fun performance. I think maybe if people are talking about like, oh, is this an Oscar-worthy performance? I think maybe they're going a little bit too far, because I don't know if it's like a year best thing. The character just isn't deep enough for me to really go there with it, but I really loved what he did here. Overall, this film is just bigger. Like, there's many more locations, there's a lot more world building, it's a lot of fun. Some of it can feel a little contrived, especially towards the ending, but overall, really hard film not to like. I'd give this film an 8 out of 10. Now let's talk about Oscars here. Obviously, Mad Max Fury Road did exceptionally well at the Academy Awards, getting 10 nominations, and some of those I feel that Furiosa has to be like close to guaranteed to getting. The ones that I see as being pretty locked in are visual effects, sound, makeup. Hard to deny that those are going to be contending. Now, before I answer whether the other nominations will happen, we should just talk about Best Picture, because that informs whether I think those are happening. I don't think Furiosa will get a Best Picture nomination. Is it impossible if it does amazing and smashes at the box office? I don't think it's impossible, but I'm just not sensing it. I feel like even though people will love this movie, it will kind of come and go as like one of the summer's best, and we'll just sort of leave it in that box. Whether that's fair or not, you can decide, but I just think that's how it's going to go. Fury Road was talked about as one of the best action films of all time, and I don't think Furiosa is going to have that quite on its side. There might be more of a localized conversation with, oh, the Mad Max films are some of the best films we have right now. Furiosa is one of the best action films of the year. Now, I think you really have to stand out as an action film if you're trying to get Academy Awards. Fury Road, I think it stood out more. The costumes are stunning here. I think it should be nominated. I think it's got a really good shot at getting nominated for costumes, but it does give me pause about, okay, if it's not in Best Picture, then does it get costumes? I think it's like a Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I think that's the best comparison we can go off of, and that actually won costumes at the Academy Awards, so there's a decent chance for costumes here. Without Best Picture, I don't see cinematography happening, and weirdly, I'm gonna say it doesn't get production design. That craft actually seems more tied into Best Picture than the other ones like costumes. I'm gonna predict that it doesn't go for that. Also going off of it being like a numbers game where if you're not in Best Picture, it's rare to get 5+ techs, and I'm gonna predict 3 to 4. It seems like a safer number. And if you're going out and saying, oh, it's gonna get cinematography, art direction, editing, and not Best Picture, that's really rare. Like, I think you have some explaining to do. That just doesn't happen often. At that point, you need to just say it's in Best Picture, or you kind of have to pick one or the other. So there's some food for thought for you on the Oscar prospects for Furiosa. Definitely let me know if you disagree, because I know people are probably divided at this point in time, but I do have a feeling we're going to fall into a consensus that it's probably not Best Picture. I highly recommend this movie, though, and I think it's one you should definitely not miss. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. How furious are you?